We've been doing this here in Santa Barbara for now 26 years. So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that this is a lot of new people here tonight just to mention a couple things. MIT's mission has been to bring technology into practical use for the benefit of mankind, and a lot of that means, putting it to work in a commercial sense. In a recent report done a couple years ago, the Kauffman Foundation came up with some very interesting statistics. There are about 110,000 living alums, and they have founded almost 26,000 companies that are currently active and still independent. And by independent, I mean a company like Digital Equipment or Apollo Computer doesn't count because they were acquired, so they're no longer in the statistics. But these 26,000 companies employ 3.3 million people and generate revenue in excess of $2 trillion. If you took it all together, it's the 11th largest economy in the world. So that's MIT's commitment to entrepreneurialism and what it can do. Now, as I mentioned, we've been here for 26 years. Since that time, though, Software.com, Expert City, QAD, Indigo, Sonos, just to name a few, have proved that that's wrong. And in fact, in recent years, companies like ValueClick, FastClick, DoubleClick, Commission Junction, RightScale, Eucalyptus have found VC support. And now I'd like to introduce Kyle Ashby, who is our event chair and our moderator and who put together this evening's program.
So we're going to start first with Jeff Green. Jeff is considered one of the pioneers of the AdExchange, started a number of companies, founded a CPA network called eBound Strategy. It was named Top 10 New Company of the Year by AdBum in the past and was acquired by Nambi Media in 2003. He founded and built AdECN, an AdExchange network that launched in 2006 in the UK and 2007 in the US here. It was then sold to Microsoft. Jeff acted as the COO and led strategy and business development both before it was sold and after. He left that company in 2009 and just now started a company called The Trade Desk. So Jeff's going to come up and present a little bit about The Trade Desk and a little bit about his side of the advertising and affiliate marketing and online space. So Jeff.
Thank you, Kyle, and thanks to MIT, and thank you for all of you for coming out tonight. It's a pleasure to have a few minutes to share with you about The Trade Desk and what we do. So you may recall that the invite highlighted the mad men and women of Central Coast, California. I'm going to borrow from that. I'm a huge fan of Mad Men, so I'm going to make a few references to that. Hopefully some of you have at least seen a little bit of it. Don Draper, who's the main character, is a creative genius, can put together campaigns and wow people, always seems to pull the rabbit out of the hat. It's our belief that data is now the new creative. And by using data, you can actually do things to actually prove the results instead of just selling a story, which is the way advertising has typically been pitched in the past. All right, so let me share with you a couple numbers. 40% of the average American's media time is spent online. So a tremendous amount of media time spent online. In fact, if you look at people under the age of 30, that number is above 50%. And they're actually having a really difficult time measuring for people under the age of 18 because they are persistently connected. So it's really difficult to determine when they are actually consuming media and when they're just connected and being who they are. So this year, online advertising will become a $30 billion industry. And online advertising, according to pretty much any analyst on Wall Street, is expected to double over the next 5 years. So it's a massively growing industry. There are about 20 of you in this room that actually care about these numbers at all. And the rest of you don't care at all. And that goes for the people that are watching after the fact too. So there may not actually be 20 of you that care at all. And about 10% of advertising dollars are spent on online media. I started my career as a media buyer, and I was constantly learning the number of ways that you can lose your shirt buying media. Basically what we decided was the best way for inventory to be priced is to use a model just like the stock market. So you have buyers and sellers, you run an auction, and you price it. Well, after we sold this exchange to Microsoft, we actually said, what if we could operate at an even more granular level, where we could auction off every single impression one by one? So rather than buying them in bundles, like let's say CDOs, where nobody actually knows what's in those things, you actually were to sell them one by one. And that's what we did, and that's what we utilize today at the trade desk. It's actually become the the fastest growing way that inventory is sold in online advertising. It's estimated that last year 5% of inventory was sold that way. This year 15%. It's the hottest sector in online advertising in terms of where venture capital is going and things like that. So let me explain the way that it works. Don Draper says to Peggy Olson, I hate to break it to you, but there is no big lie. There is no system, the universe is indifferent. When it comes to data, we actually think there is a system, and Congress and consumers are not indifferent. So one of the things that we do is we've actually created an initiative to reach out to consumers to help them manage their own privacy so that they can control exactly how their data is being used and what level of transparency or expose and create transparency so that they, again, can manage that. And we think in the end, the entire ecosystem is better for this because consumers will have better control over what ads are, and what data is being used. We'll be able to serve more relevant ads, so they'll actually have a better experience. The marketers are actually getting in touch with people that are more likely to respond to their ads, and their brands are protected because people aren't annoyed with them, showing the same ads again and again, or feeling like a person's feeling like they're stalked. Usually the person that really gets hurt in that is the brand, not the person that's doing the marketing on their behalf.
I'm curious to know how you deal with the waning credibility issue. If I'm inundated by ads throughout my day, how do I know that I really want to click on this one ever?
There are just way too many ads that you don't even recognize them. In order for us to have a better dialogue and for you to have a better experience and feel better about those brands and click on them, I actually think we have to reduce the number of ads. And actually performance suggests that as well. Economics suggest it. Everything points to we have to do that because there's way more supply than there is demand.
Next up is Todd Crawford. He's co-founder of Impact Radius, a company here in Santa Barbara. Veteran of the online industry, the online advertising industry, served as VP of Sales and Business Development for a company called One Network Direct. It's also one of the contributing founders to Commission Junction, who's still here locally. And in 2007, won the Affiliate Marketing Legend Award at the Affiliate Summit Conference, Pinnacle Awards. Recently co-founded Impact Radius, and he's here to talk a little bit about the company and then stick around for the panel. So, Todd Crawford.
Hey everybody, it's good to be here. And I was curious just how many people are familiar with the affiliate marketing or performance advertising business model. I was betting on 50%, I think that's about 50%. So the concept is with display advertising, you're paying to get in front of people and with the eyeball, so you're paying on the impression. And with performance-based advertising, you're really paying to get that consumer to do something that the advertiser finds desirable. So if I sell widgets, I want you to come to my website and buy lots of widgets. If I want to get information to market back to you for a mortgage or something, then I would want to pay for some information. And so this is typically called CPA, cost per action, affiliate marketing, performance advertising, performance marketing. And so that's kind of the space that I come from, and is kind of what helped with the genesis of creating Impact Radius. So what we built with Impact Radius, and I'll get that kind of out of the way first, is a performance advertising platform. So it's not an exchange, it's not a network, it's a technology platform. And it's designed to help kind of the three entities in the advertising world, the agencies, the advertisers, and the distribution side. We call them media partners. In affiliate marketing, they're often called affiliates or publishers. But to let all of these companies come together on our platform and be able to create a campaign that can cross multiple channels. So they can advertise on the internet, through email, in television, radio, print, or mobile. And so we have the ability to allow the advertiser to manage those campaigns and track the results. So advertisers spent in 2009 about $40 billion online. And the actual percentage of that was performance-based was 59%. And in Q4, it was all the way up to 60%. But for some strange reason, the IAB includes Google in that. And other than Google, I don't know anybody that thinks buying clicks is performance advertising, but somehow they're in there. So you could really take $7 billion out of there, and this is US spending, so about $7 billion in US revenue through Google. So now you're looking at 15 or 16 billion. But you look at offline spend, it's still huge. I mean, it's people are having conversations. I had one today where we're waiting to get started that, the young kids are not going to television, print, and radio to get information. They're plugged in, and everybody's worried about what's the future of offline, but it still dwarfs. It's 85% of all advertiser spend. So it's a huge amount. But the interesting thing is the performance side of that is minuscule. It's less than 3%. And when we started looking at this, the thing that struck me is back in 1998 when we started Commission Junction and affiliate marketing was really starting to, actually it wasn't starting to get known. It was a really difficult conversation. You would talk to people over and over about doing this. And I can't tell you how many CEOs I had to explain. You will only pay for your advertising after someone goes to your site and does what you want them to do, like buy something in your shopping cart. And literally it would take that, you'd have to say that 3 times before someone understood it. And then they thought it was the best idea they ever heard of. So how in less than 12 years does it go from 3 to 5% to 60% of advertiser spend? The key is data. People can optimize that. Everybody's backing out, if you're buying advertising from me, I'm backing it out to an effective CPM, no matter how you pay me for it. If you're paying me for advertising, you're probably backing it out to an effective cost per sale or order or lead. So the reason that it was able to move is because of these affiliate networks that gave the distribution side a choice. They could look at these offers, they could pick them.
Frank Gerstenberger from Audience Science is the next member of the panel and speaker. Frank has over 20 years experience in marketing and product management in the technology industries, online marketing, advertising, internet software, and mobile and wireless. He has held executive management positions at Commission Junction, Intel, Zircom, and a company called QuarterDeck. He's a graduate of UCLA and also has an MBA from Anderson at UCLA. He now serves as Vice President of Privacy and Standards at Audience Science. So Frank Gerstenberger.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. Earlier, Jeff talked a little bit about one of the new things in online advertising, which is real-time bidding, right? The ability to and for an advertiser to determine in real time whether or not they want to buy an impression, send a message to a consumer, and what they're willing to bid on it, okay? That's a pretty, amazing innovation. It offers a huge opportunity for advertisers and also for publishers, everybody in the ecosystem. So let's talk about the ecosystem a little bit. I'm going to have a slightly different take on it. This is what the online advertising ecosystem used to look like. It was pretty simple. You had advertisers and agencies, and they worked with either publishers or ad networks. Many times they would go direct to a publisher and do an advertising buy. Why? Well, maybe I'm a consumer brand and I'm used to buying in the Wall Street Journal print edition, or I'm used to buying in Time Magazine. I know that the readers of those properties are targets for my product, so we go target on those websites. Great fit, right? I'm not worried about brand safety because I know the content in those pages is good, so I'm going to go buy there. That works really well. One of the challenge being any one of those websites may only reach, maybe 5, 10, 20 million unique users. So how do you get more reach? You have to go and you have to do deals with more and more publishers. The other key thing that evolved was ad networks. And basically what ad networks did is they aggregated inventory from lots of sites. So sometimes those big publishers, sometimes smaller publishers. The benefit for the advertiser is they could go to one or multiple ad networks and they could reach almost the entire internet audience, maybe 130 million people. So it gave them an ability to get scale in their advertising. The other key thing was there was a lot of innovation with ad networks. You had ad networks that would specialize. Some would specialize on performance. So if you were an advertiser that maybe operated a retail site, you could go work with a performance network, and they would really focus on hitting certain metrics for you, making sure that every sale cost you, $15 or less, making sure that your ROI objectives were achieved. So over the years, that was the ecosystem. It worked pretty well. But as things do in the technology space, and especially in the internet, things innovate, things change. And so this is what our ecosystem looks like today. Okay? Who's seen this slide before? Not that many. That's good. Usually we go to a conference, we show this, and everybody's like, yeah, I've seen this 100 times. This is from an investment banking firm, GCA Savient. And this basically is the display advertising ecosystem today. And there are many, many players. You have advertisers on the left and publishers on the right. And the good news is the reason there's so many players is because all these little problems would crop up, right? Once an advertiser goes from maybe buying direct from an advertiser to a publisher, they start to do other things. You have all these little problems come up, and new players come into play. So we started in 1999, and we started as an analytics company. In terms of analytics, who's heard of Google Analytics or Omniture or Coremetrics, right? Everybody's heard. That's how we started out. I mean, we were in that business. And so we have a long history of collecting large amounts of data and trying to make that data manageable and useful for customers. In 2003, we moved into the audience targeting space, specifically with a product for publishers. So we had a technology platform that we could take to large publishers, people like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Edmunds, KBB, sites like that, that let them build audiences that they could then sell to advertisers. In 2006, we moved into the media space, and we launched what we called our Audience Marketplace. That's the same time that the Santa Barbara office of Audience Science was founded. And what's interesting about that is those two things coincided. Audience Science decided they wanted to get into the media business. There was a nice pool of talent in Santa Barbara that had expertise in that business, and so we were able to leverage the success of companies like FastClick and ValueClick and Commission Junction. We were able to leverage the people and resources from those companies, bring those people on board, and be able to build a media business. So just an interesting anecdote of how we leveraged the Santa Barbara technology base to take a data company into the media space. In 2008, we launched our technology platform for advertisers. We'll talk about that a little more. And then this year, we have recently acquired two companies. One, Consorte Media, which gives us some additional assets for marketing to the Hispanic marketplace. And we just acquired a company called Wonderloop, which was based in Germany, was a leader in German behavioral targeting and in behavioral targeting in Europe. And really, they're going to help us further establish our business in Europe. And at the same time, we're bringing some of their technology over here for use in the States. And that all ended up with us being, with our Audience Gateway being the leading data management platform. It's used by over 100 large premium publishers and advertisers worldwide. And if you look at what advertisers are doing today, 50% of advertisers are doing audience targeting. A few years ago, that was around 20, so it's been growing rapidly. Another 20% are projected to be doing it soon. So this is the real sweet spot. When you look at display advertising over the next couple years, more and more of those dollars are going to be moving towards people targeting based on audiences, and it's going to tie in really well with what Jeff talked about with real-time bidding. Those two things go hand in hand, and we're going to drive that growth.
In your 180 segments, I would almost assume that none would be consumers that have certain charitable giving patterns. But that's an interesting area for me because I see most nonprofit organizations not being able to afford advertising because they can't really target and it's not cost effective. Can you build a series of attributes from the kind of data you have that might satisfy some of those requirements for charities being able to match with potential donors?
I mean, we certainly could sit down with a charity and just try and understand who do they, what are the attributes of people that tend to give to charities and build that audience. That's absolutely something that we do and would be, in our wheelhouse, so to speak. On the advertising side, in terms of, they don't have funds for that. If you build a good audience, the return on investment could actually be, pretty well, right? Not so much. Not so much. Obviously we see a lot of stuff at election time, but haven't seen it on the charitable piece. No.
interested to know how and maybe when in your early development cycle you landed your first customers. Was it before product release? Was it after product release? And what was that experience like? Now, these are the guys that pay you, not your customer's customer, but the guys that are paying you. How did that come about in your companies?
For us, it was, I guess we started charging our customers once we went into our public beta at the beginning of the year. So we had some customers using the technology in the quarter previous just to kind of pressure check all the pipes and things like that, and we weren't charging them. But then we started charging our clients, so in the first quarter.
I would say for us, almost all of our initial clients have been people that we've worked with in the past, in past companies. So, in most cases, they were all waiting for us to get product. So as soon as our product released, we just launched with the friends and family that we already had.
Right.
That was before my time. But I will speak actually. So I was there when we launched our ad network, and yeah, once the product was ready, we had customers right away.
Yes, since this is the election season and elections tend to take advantage of any new technology and services, I'm just curious as to how the current election cycle is going to be improved or in any way different due to these kinds of innovations, even just from the last 2 years or 4 years ago.
And what that does is I think makes it easier for us to target people according to their behaviors and interests that they've exhibited online. And as you get to learn more about people researching specific candidates or showing behaviors that denote that they're on the fence, I think you'll see presidential candidates or candidates of any kind getting more focused and getting their message in front of them. So I think digital media is going to play a very interesting role in really every major election as far as I can see ahead.
A couple things. In the last election, audience targeting, although not new, was still not as mainstream as it is today. So we saw lots of interest in 2008, but a lot of candidates tended to shy away simply because audience targeting was new and they were a little uncomfortable with it.
The success of the presidential election, I mean, a lot of things stood out. People realized that there are some pretty forward, aggressive kind of marketing campaigns that you can get away with that aren't that expensive, social media being one of them.
I'll ask a little easier question. How about in the next 3 years? Can you guys talk a little bit more, not necessarily with your companies specifically, but media as a whole, about the convergence of offline and online? What you think might happen?
I mean, well, like I said before, I think there's just going to be more crossover with what you can do with the customer, and it really depends on the advertiser what their goals are. If they're not physical stores, then that comes off the table. So it's, to me, I think once people really can feel like they can control that, because I can tell you right now, if I run a branded advertiser on a performance basis on websites, and they run a bunch of cool commercials, or just commercials, they don't even have to be cool, you will see more sales go through the web. What happened? Oh, these TV spots are running. So they all affect each other, and that's kind of the holy grail, is like, which of my dollars are well spent, and how did I really make that happen, and can I replicate it? Can I keep doing it? What worked? What should I cut out? The attribution model is the huge kind of the other buzzword now. What channel, what spend could I cut out and still get 96% of the result, but save 24%, something like that. That's where I see it kind of heading.